Hello and welcome. In this video I will show you how I came up across quite a few obstacles to make this lovely piece of plaque for my running club balloon harp. The brief was that the plaque should be around A4 size so that it will last across quite a few seasons, that each year we'll be able to add to engrave another name for male and a female category of the winners. And I thought that this lovely piece of English plain platanus will be actually quite nice to do the job. Interestingly, during the process I hit quite a few roadblocks, and one of them was this bloody thicknesser planer, and you can see the amount of smoke coming out of it, and I had to get it fixed. So the problem was actually quite easy to rectify. The blades were dull after quite a few years of service, and they were just not performing as they should. So I had to swap them, which, let's say, took me a little bit of help from Google, and then within, let's say, an hour or so it has been all done and dusted, so it wasn't a huge headache. But again, another little obstacle to overcome, but it was quite interesting actually to take the tool into smaller pieces and just get it sorted and fixed. So that is the lovely blade. Actually there are two, and as you can see this side is quite dull and dented, hence it couldn't perform. But then when you flip it, happy days, brand new shiny and sharp blade. So after the swap you can see the black marks, and they just disappear in no time. Happy days. Yeah, so much better. So one problem solved. But I didn't tell you what I would like to do. So I would like to make this whole plaque slightly more attractive, appealing and lighter. I'm quite often, let's say, accused of making stuff heavy and chunky, so I thought I would just make it slightly more interesting by tapering in both planes, so that it will be thicker at the base, thinner at the top, and equally it will be wider at the base and narrower at the top. So I'm using now my table saw, or I will be using my table saw to trim it. A few weeks ago I bought those lovely aluminium rails that I had to actually slim down because I couldn't buy a metric size, so it took me a little bit of time just to faff around to make them nice and tight fit for that specific imperial measurement. But yeah, now removing the washers that kept them slightly lifted, removing the double-sided sticky tape, which actually was a little bit of a pain. Had to trim all the screws because otherwise they would just go through. I didn't have shorter ones, unfortunately. And then this piece of green plastic as a backing plate. And now, let's say in few passes I managed to cut it. Unfortunately, the lift on the table saw failed, so that was another obstacle that I had to come across and get sorted. So it took me another few weeks to get all the parts and fix it, but I had a chance to use my little rubbish plane, which I actually don't like. But now going back to the taper, so I have lifted one side of the piece of the wood so that when it will go through the thicknesser it will shave it off and taper it so that the bottom will be thicker and the top will be a little bit thinner, and later on it will be narrower. And I'm using heat gun just to temporarily fix it to a piece of MDF, and now running through the thicknesser, generating quite a bit of dust and smoke, and you can see quite a few repetitions there.
Oh, shit. Fuck. I wish I did some CrossFit.
Surprisingly, the glue was stronger than I actually anticipated, and it performed quite well. So I actually used a piece of old shelving as a flat plate board to run it through the thicknesser, and now using chisel to scrape it off the excess of the glue and little bit remaining bits of support. You can still see bigger chunks of wood lying around. That is the future bench that I'm still in the process of making. So at the time of the recording, I already have the top done, and I'm in the process of cutting out mortise and tenons for the legs, which is really time consuming, and hopefully that video will come in the next, let's say, 6 to 8 weeks, hopefully. And now I'm trying to gauge the angle, how to trim the side so that it will be nicely tapered from one side, and then I will have to add taper on the other side. And now I will be trimming the top just to make sure that it will be nice and square to one of the faces. So you can see it is slimming down towards the blade, and hopefully it will have a nicer, lighter view once it's done. So most of the sides are done, so it is thinner in one direction, and now I would like to provide similar chamfer, let's call it chamfer, in this direction, so that just to mark it up and make sure that I will not cock it up in terms of the taper in one direction and then in the other plane as well. My little circular saw did the trick. The blade, I think, can reach up to 65 mm at 90 degrees, and then of course way less when it is at 45-ish. So it was just a bit of a touch and go. And then unfortunately English plane has quite a few voids and cracks in between the wood fibers, so I had to patch it up. So I'm using sawdust with wood glue to fix bigger cracks and voids, and then CA glue to fill up all the little cracks. Once the glue has dried out, it was time to heat it with a sander, and I'm using my old Makita oscillating sander, which is okay, but I think it is time to upgrade it for a nicer oscillating sander, which will be just performing slightly better. And of course I used my belt sander to take away the bulk of the edges, especially the end grain, which is usually pain in the backside to sand, but I just love the wood grain and the patterns. So I really like English plane as a wood. It's really nice and interesting. Each face just looks different. After sanding, a few more cracks came up, so again a little bit of CA glue fixed the problem. That's quite easy to apply and fairly easy to sand it off. And then, of course, now I would like to provide a little bit of a round over to all the edges so that it will be just easier to handle and it will be more comfortable and it will just pleasant to touch. I thought it would be a good opportunity or excuse just to spend few quid and buy a burning iron so that I can stamp and engrave my company logo, and I spent, let's say, 200 quid, and I thought, ooh, that would be a cool thing to use on all of the projects in the past. And I had to try it out and check how hard or easy it is to use, and I have to say it is harder than it looks, because there are quite a few options how long to heat it up and then how long to hold it against the wood, and you can see a little bit of smoke coming out, and if you hold it too long it will just burn it too much that it will be just a blurry and just hard to read. If you keep it not long enough it will just be quite dull and it will not have the same impact. Probably on the hindsight I should have used like a little jig and a template to be able to position it carefully in exactly the same spot. And yes, you can see that initially it just looks quite dark, especially the circle, and the letters in the circle were supposed to be translucent or not burned, but a little bit of sanding solves that problem and it's okay. Again, on the hindsight, I would probably, again, then explore it fully by engraving tool, and that might be a better option in the long run. But somehow I thought it would be a cool option to be able to burn it and just have your logo stamped on each piece. And on that occasion, I'm using natural wax to protect this piece of wood. It will be used, or actually it will be displayed in a pub, so I don't expect any moisture or anything. It will be just collecting dust, most likely. So I thought wax will be just a nice touch. And as I mentioned earlier, each face just looks different. Grain, wood pattern just looks different, and it's just beautiful. I just love the way it looks and just has so many interesting features and so much character to it. I just love it. Anyway, let me know what you think about it in the comments. And now it's time, after applying all the finishes, to screw in the legs. So to keep it nice and stable, I thought I would opt just for 3 legs or little pads so that it will be more stable on 3 than actually on 4, like any tripod. At least that was the idea behind it. And let's screw them in, and happy days, we are almost there. So at that point I'm quite happy and it's ready to go. And you can see the front page or front face is still blank and awaiting the competition. So the comp will be in a few weeks time, so I'm ahead of the schedule, and it should be ready for the winners' names to be engraved on the front face, and we'll be able to display it. After the comp we can see the winners. Unfortunately, the plonker who did the engraving thought that it would be a great idea to erase my logo. So I have to say it annoyed me quite a bit, so I had to fix it. Unfortunately, whoever did this did a really poor job, and it was so uneven, and I couldn't actually flatten the whole surface easily, and I couldn't burn the logo because over that distance there were little dents and the burning process couldn't complete the full length, and it was just so annoying. So I did quite a few tries, and finally I managed to find a side face that was actually quite flat and was okay. So it took me a few goes before I actually managed to do it. After sanding, a little bit of acetone to remove the final dust, and on that occasion I will be using Osmo oil, which I bought for another project, and I thought I will give it a go and just see how this performs. So I have applied 2 coats of Osmo, and it should be quite durable and it should last comfortably at least a year before the next names will be engraved. And as you can see, Louise and Mike won 2025 race for the Bell and Harp. So final touches, and it looks like new. And I think that with Osmo it actually has a little bit more sheen and is just more alive. So I think for the future I will be sticking with Osmo, but again in between the coats, maroon pad to rub off a little bit of the surface for the final application, and we are done. So after quite a few weeks of there and back and fixing quite a few problems on the way, project has been completed, and in the next 2 weeks hopefully it will be nicely displayed in Bell and Harp pub in Little Eton. So if you would like to come around or join us for the next run, you're welcome. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Thank you. Cheers.